Have you ever felt lost in a sea of books, not knowing which ones are going to be best for your homeschool year? With thousands of choices and moms debating what's twaddle and what's not, how do you pick books that'll fit your family's values, help them grow and nourish their mind while also getting them to love reading? I have been overwhelmed and second-guessing every pick myself. So today I'm back at Exodus Books in Oregon City to show you a simple way to confidently choose fiction books for your homeschool. In our home, a good book isn't just about worldview. It's about connection, growth, and joy. And I want to walk you through the exact criteria I use with real life examples from these shelves at Exodus Books about how you can build a reading rhythm that's unique for your family. And speaking of book recommendations, every week I send out 3 specific books that my 4 boys are actually loving right now. These aren't some random picks off the internet. These are real books that are in our living room, creating joy and growth. And if you want those weekly picks delivered straight to your inbox, join my newsletter through the link in the description below. And there's also a discount code for you to get 10% off Exodus Books even if you're shopping online or in person. Whether you're new to homeschooling or just want more confidence in picking the books your children are reading, today you're going to leave with a clear, balanced approach and permission to enjoy the process. Now let's take a minute and talk about what makes a book good, because that answer will depend on who you're talking to. For some people, it's all about values. For others, it has to do with its literary and educational quality. And those things really do matter. But I found that a good book isn't just about what's inside the book, but what it does inside your child. These 2 books may look like they belong on the opposite end of the spectrum, but they've both earned a place in our homeschool. Now, in our house, a good book is one that strengthens character. This can be faith-based books or moral books or Bible-based literature. A good book could also be one that sparks imagination. Something fantasy, adventure related, something that's gonna light them up. A good book could also be one that stretches their vocabulary or their worldview, or it puts them in another place and time of things that really happened. These are the kinds of books that challenge them gently, either with big words or big ideas. Or a good book could be one that brings connection and joy. Ones that the kids read aloud to each other, make each other laugh. Things like Dogman and Zeta the Space Girl. If a book gets passed around on a road trip and ends in belly laughs, that's a good book. When we stop thinking in terms of perfect books and start thinking in terms of purposeful books, that's when things start to change. It frees us up to build a stack for our real world children, not these perfect homeschoolers we just imagined. We don't need 50 of books that build character, or 50 books that spark imagination, or 50 books that stretch our kids or spark joy. We simply need a few books in each category that will grow with your kids. So when you're building your homeschool book stack this year, I want you to ask yourself, what does this book do in my child? Is it going to stretch them? Is it going to spark imagination? Maybe help them love reading just a little more? Well, then it's probably a good book. Now, I want to show you how we use the stretchy category in our house and what to do once they've finished a stretchy book. So let's talk about stretchy books now. And these are the ones that ask a little more of your kiddo, and you help them rise to the understanding of this book that stretches them just a little bit outside their capacity. So a stretch book is one that is, 1 to 2 to 3 to maybe even 5 grade levels ahead of your child's independent reading level. This doesn't have to do with their grade. This doesn't have to do with their age. That has to do with their personal independent reading level. That's an important distinction for you to know as we move forward. So what you're looking for in a stretchy book is something that's longer than what they normally read, uses richer vocabulary than what they're used to, or just requires more focus than they're used to. But it's totally worth it because these books build stamina, expand vocabulary, and develop comprehension. And honestly, these kind of books are what's going to train your child's brain to slow down and wrestle with meaning. Ooh, and that's a skill they're going to use for the rest of their life, not just in reading books, but in their life and in their faith. Now, here's where I think a lot of homeschool plans fall short. We assign the big, beautiful books, and then when our kid's done with them, we move on. But the gold is really in what happens after they finished one of those great, awesome books. So when your child finishes a stretch book, let's take time to process it. So how do you process a stretch book? Number one, you just talk about it. Just ask them questions. What did you love? What confused you? What character surprised you? You can keep it casual. It could be in the car, at lunch, during a walk. Super simple. Now, if you've got a younger kid, another thing you could do is have them draw. Have them draw their favorite scene. If your kiddo is older, they can write a reflection about how the book made them feel. Gosh, I remember reading books like Harry Potter and the Aragon series and thinking, like, I was so attached to characters. When things would happen to them, I would verbally blurt out, "No!" And so I think helping our kids process that emotional attachment they have to characters. Why did you like that character so much? Through writing and reflecting is so important. You could also have an older child retell part of the story through writing, or even write an alternate ending. And if you have a kiddo who's, middle school to high school, you could even have them do a literary analysis. Have them identify the theme, character growth, symbolism, point of view. You don't even need a curriculum for these things. You just need a few good questions for a literary analysis. And once they've reflected on this stretchy book, then take time to choose the next book. You don't need to rush into the next title just to check a box. Stretchy books are like rich meals. Let them digest for a little bit. So the goal isn't just to finish a stretchy book, it's to grow through it. So don't skip these conversations. Don't skip reflecting, because this is where meaning is going to stick. Let's talk about a word that comes up often in Christian homeschool mom circles, Charlotte Mason circles, and it's this word called twaddle. And you've probably heard it, and it is used to describe books that are fluffy, they lack substance, and they're just shallow. And here's the thing. I do think quality literature is important for our kids to have access to. I'm all about stretching our kids and giving them stories that shape their minds and their hearts. But I'm also going to tell you, there is room on your bookshelf for things that bring joy. In our family, we make space for books that bring us together, help us laugh and connect, and get my boys reading to each other. And Dogman, my boys love it. And honestly, I love reading it with them. Yes, there's a few misspelled words. Yes, it's goofy. But the emotional journey of the characters, especially watching the villain wrestle with redemption, is surprisingly deep for something so playful. And more importantly, it connects my kids to books. And connection is the gateway to loving reading. I want you to think of these books like salad and ranch dressing. When I first started trying to eat salad, I loaded up on the ranch dressing because I could hardly choke down the leafy greens. But over time, I used less dressing, and now I actually genuinely crave those leafy greens. And these books can work the same way. If your child only wants to read Dogman right now or only wants to read comic books, then give them Dogman, give them comic books. And over time, we can build toward deeper stories. And we start by building a love of reading, though. And before you start telling me about how worried you are that reading these books are going to affect your child's reading comprehension and only get them hooked on books that are entertainment based, let me put those worries to rest. Because here's what I've seen in my home. My kiddos, when they take the MAPS test, it's a standardized nationwide, actually it's used around the world. When they take their MAPS test, they are consistently scoring in the top 10% of everyone worldwide. Over like 12 million people take this test every year. It's going in the top 10% of reading comprehension. Like, okay, these books don't negatively impact them. And on occasion, they're scoring in the top 1% of reading comprehension. So no, a silly book isn't going to derail your homeschool. When it's part of a healthy reading life, it actually fuels their love of reading. Letting your kids have access to silly books that they love isn't compromise. It's a strategy. If the idea of picking the right books for the whole year feels a little overwhelming, as it probably should, let's take a deep breath. You don't have to plan every page in advance. You just need a rhythm that works. So here's what we do in our home, and it's brought so much clarity to our book choices. So I've got one book for joy, and these are the books that light up your kiddos, the ones they read in bed or in a fort or on the trampoline or to each other. They feed that joy, spark curiosity, and really they're an easy win. There's no guilt with them. They could be considered twaddle, but our kids want to read them. The one that I would suggest starting with is Heart and Brain. This is actually a series. It is very much a comic book. This isn't a graphic novel. There's not a whole storyline happening here. There's, sometimes the panels last for one page. Sometimes the panels will last several pages, but they're actually really funny. So I catch my 12-year-old and 10-year-old reading these a lot. They're a lot of fun. So this one definitely sparks joy for us. Then we're also going to need a book for growth. One of those stretchy books. And I require my kiddos to read their stretchy books for 20 to 30 minutes. Remember, this is a few grade levels above your child's independent reading comfort zone, and it stretches vocabulary and stamina and thinking skills. The one I would suggest starting with is Wind in the Willows. This might be a great read aloud depending on how old your kiddos are, but I had one of my boys read this about 8 years old. My 8-year-old right now, it's still a little much for him. We might try again when he turns 10. So it all just depends on your kiddo. And then lastly, I'm really going to recommend a book for the soul. And these are books that we read aloud and discuss deeply. And there's the stories that shape who we become. And one of those stories for us is Charlotte's Web. And these are one of the stories that stay with your kids for life, all about friendship and sacrifice and just understanding and wisdom. And I hate spiders, but I kind of love Charlotte. So this is a great book for the soul and reading aloud and deep discussions. So if you're stuck, I don't want you to start with coming up with a master list. Just start with a rhythm. One book for joy, one book for growth, one book for the soul. And that's how we're going to build a homeschool reading life that's balanced, beautiful, and totally doable. Before we land the plane and wrap up this video, I want to give you my 5 top fiction picks for young kids. Most of these are going to be good fits for kids 8 and up, and especially for boys. First up is The Prince Warriors. This is actually in a series. It's by Priscilla Schreier. It's great for boys, I would say 8 and up, and it is a Christian book with spiritual themes in story form. So it's good for the soul and for growth. And it's a spiritual allegory rooted in Ephesians 6 and helps kids visualize the armor of God. And it is action-packed and faith-filled. So it's going to be perfect for those boys who want a battle story, but parents also wanting biblical depth.
And if you've got a kiddo who's starting to ask big questions about faith and feels drawn to adventure, this series is going to plant some good seeds of truth. Also, my 12-year-old is currently reading this to me, which is why it's got this in here. And he's read this series probably 3 or 4 times. He just loves it so much he wanted to read it to me. Next, we have Call of the Wild by Jack London. Now, Call of the Wild, My Side of the Mountain, Hatchet, like these are all great books for boys, but I'm going to settle on Call of the Wild for boys who are 8 and up. And it's great for independent readers who love nature and survival stories. The themes inside are of growth, resilience, instinct, identity, and it is classic literature packed with powerful emotional depth. So it is great for boys and outdoorsy kids. And this one sparks deep conversation about belonging and what makes a creature or a person who they are. Oh gosh, Buck, like seriously, I'm like wanting to cry right now just thinking about Buck. Bum-ba-da! Here's some twaddle that I think is good for you. This is Cat Kid Comic Club Influencers. This is not the first one in the Cat Kid Comic Club series, but I really like this one because it talks about social media and how to influence people. And when you're a powerful personality, like certain children are, how to use that for good. This really sparks the joy in kiddos. The imagination factor is great for reluctant readers. It is very colorful, y'all. It is very colorful. And what's really cool about this one is it's a graphic novel that actually teaches the structure of how to build a story. Like, I, I'm actually blown away by the depth that Dave Pilkey is able to put in these books and the thing he's like teaching kids how to do through what looks like stupid, dumb comics. So this is honestly like, I think it's great. Some of it is a little ridiculous, but it is secretly amazing. So it'll be a good transition from picture books to longer reads. And my boys, anything from Dave Pilkey, they will read it to each other. They do the voices, they laugh. It creates so much joy in our house. I highly recommend Dogman and Cat Kid Comic Club. Alrighty, The Secret Garden. I personally bought this book because I knew it was classic literature and I wanted to try to force that on my children. So, you guys, I even make these mistakes too. However, this mistake turned out well because my oldest read it, but my 10-year-old started reading it when he was about 8, and he really latched on to that Dickon character and saw himself in Dickon. And so he actually really loved The Secret Garden. This one's good for the soul and growth. There's redemption, there's healing, friendships, the quiet power of nature, beautiful language, timeless themes, and so much vocabulary expansion. So this is a great one for growth and the soul. It's not just for girls. Boys like it too. And this book will grow on you just like the garden. Finally, is Grandma's Attic. And this is really good for our younger kiddos. Maybe you're reading it to them. Maybe they're learning to read 6, 7, all the way up to the tween years. And they're sweet stories rooted in faith, family, and humor. And it's basically all about grandma telling her granddaughter about stories she went through and the lessons she learned sometimes the hard way. And so I really appreciate this one for growth and for the soul. If you want more soul-filling, captivating book ideas for your kiddos every week, make sure you join my free newsletter. I share 3 books, 3 new books in my newsletter every single week that my boys are loving. And you can find the link for that in the description. Whether you've got a reluctant reader, a book devourer, or just want shelves that reflect both your value and your kids' interests, I know that one of these books I've shared with you today is going to be a hit. Don't forget to use that 10% off discount code from Exodus Book. It is in the description. You can use it online or in person. So thanks for hanging out with me and happy reading.